Easter to those of you who celebrate. We are here today with another episode of Press Steam to Start. I'm Gardiner. This is my friend Jackson. How's it going, my friend?
Hey, it's pretty good.
Good. We're going to talk about some cool stuff today. The Asus ROG Ally. We're going to have some hot topics to talk about with this
some hot
thing.
Hot
takes. We're also going to be talking about another potential handheld this week from PlayStation, and also, did the Steam Deck break 3 million sales, or will it soon? We'll talk about that as well. There's going to be a lot in this video, so stay tuned. This is Press Steam to Start. Let's get into it, shall we?
Yeah, all right. So, Gardner, you've been playing anything fun this week at all?
Emily and I started playing Paper Mario on the Steam Deck.
Hey, that's illegal. You can't do that.
That's definitely not illegal. Especially if I own the cartridge.
No, you can't do that. Not allowed. I've never actually played. I played Thousand Year Door when my brother had it way back when, but I've never played the original Paper Mario.
So Emily played Thousand Year Door on GameCube, and she had never played the N64 version, which is the OG Paper Mario.
OG.
So we're doing that. We actually played it last night on stream. So if you guys want to watch that, you can head over to the channel if you're not already here.
You know what I think? I think the original Paper Mario has never received a port outside of Virtual Console stuff and Nintendo Online such, because there's a bunch of N64 games that got ported to 3DS, but I don't think that's ever been remade in any sense.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Which is interesting because it's a popular franchise from Nintendo. Yeah,
it's a really good game. I played it when I was a little kid, and the problem is that I had no supervision when I was a child, so I amassed this large N64 collection.
Oh no!
And then I went to the pawn shop and traded my N64, 3 controllers, multiple rumble packs, and a memory card for a PlayStation.
Don't tell me it was like a futuristic orange variant of the N64.
No, it was not.
Okay, well, at least it wasn't that.
But anyway, I traded like 30 games and a lot of stuff for a PlayStation. Just a PlayStation, no games, nothing, and just one controller, and it was a bad time. So that's what I mean when I say I was unsupervised. My parents just let me do whatever with my stuff, and I really regret trading all of that in because I've had to rebuild my N64 collection.
Oh yeah, I traded in most of my GameCube collection back in the day for a 360 and such.
Oh my gosh.
And then
that's
think
almost
about
worse.
Right, thinking about the value of GameCube games nowadays, it's just okay, cool. So it's gonna cost me $1,000 some to rebuild what costed me at the time maybe like $100 or $200. Prices are outrageous. Well, where's my document? Okay, there we go. I've been still playing Breath of the Wild, but I've decided to turn that into a 3 heart run.
Oh my gosh, you're a masochist.
Well, no, not only that. So I'm skipping the Divine Beasts because I thought, Ganon's too easy. So I'm going to do a 3 heart run, fight Ganon at full health. And my idea was not that I'm speedrunning this, but I am doing glitches to get further in the game than I'm supposed to. So with 3 hearts, I already have the Master Sword.
Wow.
And I need to get the Hylian shield to stand a chance. But there's a boss you have to fight. So I thought, okay, well, what's going to increase my odds is if I do the Master Sword trials and increase the sword damage and such. I then remembered that I never beat the Master Sword Trials because that's hard when I
Yeah.
have all those hearts and I only have 3 hearts. So it is basically that one, like, I think it's the DLC challenge where you get the Obliterator, which is a one-hit kill, but you are also killed in one hit. That's just the run. That is just every enemy kills me in one hit pretty much.
Mm.
So it's very it's fun, but yeah, it's throwing myself against a brick wall. Other than that,
Fun.
yeah. Other than that, Humble Bundle had their choice and had Roller Drome in it, which is I've been waiting for so long for that game to hit something like that. I figured it would happen, and it's described as a Tony Hawk meets Max Payne or something, and it really is because you start each level, it gives you a list of objectives, just like Tony Hawk. And as you clear them, that just stays cleared for the next time you do it, just like Tony Hawk. Um, but it is so fun and responsive of just doing these tricks, taking out these bad guys. The art styles are really great. It's by the team that does Ollie Ollie, which is also a great skateboarding game.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy to finally get that game in my collection to play on the Steam Deck because I was playing it before the podcast started.
Nice.
So
I this game wasn't even on my radar. I'm adding it to my wish list.
oh
right
yeah,
now.
yeah, it's definitely a really fun, quick pick up and go game, and it's not that hard to learn.
Nice. You said it's part of the Humble
It is.
monthly.
It's part of the Humble Bundle monthly choice, which I wrote an article about. Hey, you can
Yes,
view
you
it
did.
on ViewSync. The 3 headliners are it's it's Death Stranding Director's Cut, Aliens Fire Team, and Roller Drome, which Roller Drome has never been under $12. So already for me, that was worth it. But then you've got Death Stranding and such. And there's other games in there too. Life is Strange 2. I gotta think of other ones. I feel bad because I can't immediately name them off the top of my head. The Life and Suffering of Sir Bryant, Rivita. There's a lot of good. There's some good games in there. I would recommend you check it out if anything strikes your fancy. Worth the $12. But yeah, and you can view that article on ViewSync where I break down the headliners and the price and how they perform on Steam Deck, which all of them pretty much perform well on Steam Deck, I believe.
Yeah. And, we've been pretty on top of the Humble Choice selection every month. So if you guys haven't already, subscribe to our newsletter on ViewSync as well. It's free. You can sign up relatively easily. And right now there's actually a discount going on. There'll be a link in the description of this video if you want to sign up for the premium membership, which gives you access to the podcast audio version.
Do I have to put like the ad music underneath what you just said during this? Because now I don't know how I would cut this out.
Oh no! Just go in and get the Sims buy mode music and drop that underneath.
Perfect. All right. Smash cut to the Wii Shop channel's music.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of other games, let's talk about Deck Verified this week. Every week we like to talk about what games have been officially Deck Verified. So we're starting out with Gunsuit Guardians, an early access rogue light twin stick horde shooter. Defend Earth from an alien onslaught with a unique arsenal.
That sounds like my kind of game. I like the twin stick shooters.
Yeah. This is a day one verified, so it launched this week and was verified. This is Meet Your Maker from the developers of Dead by Daylight. Hey, put that on Steam Deck, please. Thanks. An asymmetric multiplayer first-person building and raiding game. It's essentially Mario Maker mixed with a futuristic shooter. I've seen some mixed things because right now it's kind of the game incentivizes you to just make annoyingly challenging maps and not innovative or fun maps. So maybe we'll see that change after a little bit. But Backpack Hero Early Access. You'll see a trend here. Inventory roguelike deck builder. Collect rare items, organize your bag, and vanquish your foes. So if you really like the inventory management of Resident Evil 4, there you go. This one is not Narco. It is Norco. A text-based Southern Gothic point-and-click mystery adventure. Solve the disappearance of your brother. I went back in my document. Okay, cool. Disappearance of your brother in a sci-fi dystopian Southern Louisiana.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Deliver Us the Moon. Sci-fi thriller in a near-apocalyptic future where you are a lone astronaut discovering what happened to a moon colony that went dark. Glitch Hikers, the spaces between, an atmospheric and surreal journey through spaces between places. What bizarre characters will you converse with on your journey? This last one is a little bit interesting. It is not verified officially. It is called Rush Rally Origins. However, during my search, because I search on Twitter for this, because a lot of announcements will come out of verified, and I see the timestamp there. The developer officially tweeted out saying that it runs well on Steam Deck perfectly. They have emailed and asked Valve for it to be verified, and they have not had any response back. So that was an interesting thing that I found out, is that it seems that I assume that someone at Valve has to actually thoroughly test it. So some developers aren't getting into that verified program quite yet. Like this one that's a bit of a smaller developer. But I wanted
this is really interesting because it's rated as unknown.
Right.
But on November 5th or November 15th of last year, they posted a thing saying, we have been making sure that it's 100% compatible with the Steam Deck. We want everyone to be able to enjoy it. But Valve has just not made it, tested it at all, which is fascinating because you would think a game that was like given the status or released or whenever on November 15th, you would think Valve would have gotten to it already.
Maybe it could also be that there's just such a demand to verify these games that there might be a backlog at this point, and we don't know because developers aren't mentioning it. Whatever reason, there is a demo available of the game, so you can test it on your Steam Deck if you want to see how well it plays, or if you're interested in the game at all. So just wanted to give that a shout out, because that was an interesting sort of thing I found out this week. You know what we found out this week?
What?
The ROG Ally was not an April Fool's joke.
Yeah, that was interesting, wasn't it?
Despite the video being weirdly comedic, released on April 1st, Asus announced a handheld gaming PC in the vein of the Steam Deck, AN Neo, GPD Win, One X Player, and people are really talking about it because it's the first handheld with RDNA 3 graphics, because they're working in conjunction with AMD for a custom chipset, much like Valve did for the Steam Deck. However, it has a 1080p 120 hertz screen, first one of its kind so far, and quote, twice the performance of the Steam Deck. I say quotes because it will do that if ran at 35 watts opposed to the Steam Deck's 15 watts.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've held a handheld that's running at 35 watts, but that is hot, loud, and does not last long for battery life.
I'm going to call it at a maximum of 35 minutes of playtime at 35 watts.
So the Fox also did a video breakdown of this handheld where his thumbnail is just "Thanks, I hate it." And he's really great. He does he talks about this stuff on a very technical level that I cannot, so I'll refer you to his video. Go check that out. He mentions, yeah, something similar of you're running this higher screen at a higher refresh rate, at 35 watts potentially, you're gonna get 30 minutes of battery life. And people were already complaining about the Steam Deck's battery at around 2 hours when playing a AAA game. So I don't understand how it's cool that it can reach that performance and it's got a robust cooling solution that it could operate under that heat.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to do that handheld. If you want to dock it, sure, I get that. However, if you want to dock it, Asus will sell you a $2,000 eGPU with a 4090 in it that you can hook up to this thing.
Mobile 4090.
Mobile is the important thing. There's
that you can't upgrade.
There's two aspects of this. So they had made this for their like laptops and notably their gaming tablet back in the day. It was like a Surface gaming tablet. Is interesting. They are repurposing this for this handheld, and that makes sense. The Ally does not have Thunderbolt or USB 4, which is what is used to connect to eGPUs typically. It uses their own proprietary connection along with USB-C. So it's only going to work with that enclosure. You are limited to mobile GPUs because it's just so small. That's, I guess, what chipset they went with. And you're going to pay that price premium and will not be able to upgrade the enclosure. You have to sell the entire enclosure if you want to upgrade, essentially.
And that's assuming that they ever come out with another compatible eGPU.
Assuming
module.
that this is profitable for them and they want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
The one notable thing that is the positive is, unlike the USB-C connection for eGPUs, I think it has more bandwidth or more PCIe lanes available. I think it's 8 instead of 4. So it has far less of a bottleneck opposed to something that's running over that USB-C connection. That said, not selling me in terms of the benefits outweighing the negatives of that more open connective. I can choose my eGPU. I can choose my GPU in general, a desktop class GPU. So yeah, it's
here's the thing. I am highly skeptical of this.
You skeptical of this? What?
Me skeptical? Yeah. Look, I made a video on Monday about this thing, and people were calling me a fanboy because I look at these numbers and I see just another like handheld PC. Like there's literally nothing special about this. Like all of the things that like the bigger number better crowd are saying makes this a Steam Deck killer, to me, as someone who's actually a handheld enthusiast, I see every one of these things as a problem.
Right.
Twice the performance of the Steam Deck at 35 watts means like battery performance in the toilet. You're going to have 25 minutes of battery life on this thing if you're trying to get twice the performance. 1080p, that's, if you run, like the Fox said, if you run a game even at 720p, that's, and then your FSR up, that's still way more than what the deck is doing if you're using FSR. If you're playing God of War at 800p with FSR, that means you're playing like God of War is running at like 480p and it's upscaling that. It's like people don't understand that like all of these like bigger numbers, that's not what you want in a handheld form factor. When you're talking about like desktop performance where you have unlimited wall power and you can run your GPU at 500 watts or whatever the hell, that's great. You're going to get more performance. But if you're running it's limited with GPUs, but if you're going to run a handheld that's limited to battery power, you're going to have a bad time. And thermal performance is going to be awful probably. And then the price.
I mean, we do not know.
The price we don't know, but Valve is losing money on every Steam Deck sold, or at least on the lower tiers, right? Like the $400 Steam Deck, they're definitely losing money on it.
Right.
The 256 gig model, it might be break even, but like it's very close. The fact is, Valve subsidizes the price of this thing with game sales. Asus cannot do that. Like they're just not going to be able to do that. And because of that, you're going to get double the performance for what? For double the price? I mean, that's really what I'm questioning here.
So there's no doubt that this is going to be more expensive than the Steam Deck. I think if it hits 600, I'd be amazed. If it falls between 600 and 800, I think that's not unlikely because it's Asus. They're going to be building more at scale than these smaller Aya, Neo, or GPD Win. So they're going to be ordering more. And since you order more parts and such, that's going to bring down the cost a little bit. Yeah. But you're coming in. The only way they could subsidize the cost of this is if they really mark up that eGPU component and just hope that they're going to sell a bunch of those, which I think would be incredibly misguided and dumb. And I don't think they're going to do that. I think they'll sell this, make a profit, and it's going to hit around, I'm going to say 750 or 800. That's where I'm going to bet. And you know, I'm no stranger to like a Windows handheld. All right. I do see the value of some of these in terms of, you know, Steam Deck, where I'd want the Steam Deck to go. But a lot of these are the marketing of this is sorry, that slid down. The marketing of this is going to be shot at, hey, 1080p, 120 hertz, twice the performance of the Steam Deck. That's where they're going to market it at. And it's going to be sold at Best Buy, which is the big thing. That's the biggest thing here, which is going to be really interesting. I want to see the sale numbers of that compared to the Steam Deck if it's sold in a retail location. The crowd that's going to be bought that and sold that info of twice the performance, they're not going to know that you want to be at, you know, for this, I'm going to assume 15 and 18 watts for performance. I think Asus is, I think, good at their thermal solutions, and it has 2 fans in it. I think thermally it should be pretty good, but you're still powering more with 2 fans. There's a lot of power used here, and Windows is just a resource hog. It's not intuitive to use. I think Asus is going to be doing a lot of software tweaks there, but there's no way you can't fully build around Windows when you're doing one of these handhelds, because you're still at the mercy of Microsoft with automatic updates and having to toggle through the like user authorized control window and all of these things. There's no central repository for updating your applications or getting them. You're going to have to download. At best, you're using Winget. You're using Winget to get these things, which is not going to cover all your bases. You have to update that through PowerShell every time. A general user is not going to be doing that. No. I think I want to see this succeed, definitely, but I think it's got an uphill battle when the Steam Deck is still a better value. And, you know, Asus is a little unfair because Steam has that 30% cut that Asus doesn't have. They can't fall on that. But
well, you know, this is like my whole argument in my Monday video was that this and your Win Max 3 or whatever you have, right? They are not competitors with the Steam Deck because Valve's price point is so incredibly aggressive, right? That even when RDNA 3 is like mature and much cheaper to include with these things. And the price to perform the price to performance is still not going to be there for these other handheld PCs. The other side of it is, because they ship with Windows, they provide a far inferior user experience in terms of the software. If these handhelds shipped with ChimeraOS or SteamOS, they would be closer to the user experience of the Steam Deck. But even still, you're talking about playing PC games, okay? You're talking about playing PC games on a handheld device that doesn't have a mouse and keyboard plugged in all the time. Because of that fact, that is the single biggest differentiator. When I got my GPD Win 2, I was really excited. I was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to have all of these PC games in my hand. And then I realized that there's a little toggle switch, right? The little toggle switch that switches the gamepad into mouse mode. And using Windows without a physical mouse or a trackpad is basically impossible unless you are a masochist.
I will say, GPD, that switch is probably one of the best solutions out there for these Windows handhelds. I think it's pretty good, and it's still not like fantastic. You have to work at it. It's pretty good
if you just want to like flagellate yourself. Like it's an awful experience.
If you need to open something from like the start menu real quick, or just like if you wanted to map keyboard commands to the joysticks for a shooter, like that's essentially what you're doing there. Outside of that, you're not gonna be really digging through the settings of Windows.
Yeah, dude, honestly, I find it contemptible. There aren't words strong enough to describe how much I hate having to use a joystick to control a cursor on the screen. And this is why the Steam Deck is so good to me, because you have a trackpad when you need to go into that mode, right?
Right.
But it also includes all of these other ways that you can configure the gamepad to kind of shoehorn an older PC game that expects a mouse and keyboard onto a gamepad. But like, especially in Windows, where it does not expect to have anything but mouse and keyboard, it's such a bad experience. It's so bad.
This device is built by people that say, hey, people want to play games. This is the sort of thing that they use to play games. They use this thing. It's got joysticks. It's got buttons. That's what we got to put there. The Steam Deck is built by Valve that says, all right, let's look at our games library, what we sell on our store, what kind of games are there, what kind of inputs do we need, how do we compensate for lack of a mouse and keyboard, what do we do? And Steam input is incredibly versatile, and the Steam Deck has just a load of ways, so many ways to interact with the game, with the touchpads, the gyro, the touch sensitive touchpad and joystick, creating radial menus, the back paddles. Even if I wanted to get the Ally, I would struggle to be excited for it, because I know I would not enjoy the input options. I'd be shoehorned only into, I'd feel emulation, or games that I prefer to play with a controller, like Devil May Cry, Sifu, brawlers, not shooters and such.
You're absolutely right about that, right? Is like when you play a game on Windows on one of these handhelds, your options, I mean, Steam input exists on Windows, right? But the problem is that Windows doesn't know what Steam input is. Like, it has no idea. And so you as a user have to go in and configure your desktop setup, or your controller setup in Steam input for the desktop. That's great if that's what you're into, but I'm not a tweaker. I don't really like the PC gaming experience. I like handheld gaming and I like consoles. So for me, that's one of the reasons that I loved Linux gaming so much. I still do. I say loved past tense, but it's because, you know, Steam can actually integrate so much more tightly with Linux. And that's why SteamOS exists, because it provides a much better, a more holistic experience. And so, you know, I don't know. It just drives me crazy because when you're playing, like, for example, when I first got this and I was playing games on Windows, I really was limited to, like what you were saying, I was limited to emulators and games that natively have gamepad support, because otherwise it was just too much of a hassle to deal with trying to set up Steam input on here to emulate a mouse and keyboard. It was just such a pain in the ass.
Right.
So
and now,
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, now I got a question for you. With that handheld, did you ever put it to sleep during a game? Did you ever put it to sleep at all?
And,
yeah, what happened?
The game failed completely to turn back on when you restarted it.
And someone coming from any of the not even Switch, any of the modern consoles right now, where we've built ways of essentially pausing our game and being able to walk away, anyone coming from that and tries to do it on one of these Windows devices, they're going to be sorely disappointed. Of first, it's going to take a little bit, just a hot minute to get back up, and then I'm going to say a 50-50 shot of it completely failing out. There's some games where that's not the case, but
watch this. I have ChimeraOS on here. I have a game running. There it is.
Oh wow. Yeah. That
and
was
then I
instant.
can push this button and it's off. It sometimes it'll come back on because the little switch in the lid will turn it back on. But like for the most part, this button will bring the game right back, and then that button will turn it off. And it's asleep and it's awake, and that's Linux. You can't do that with Windows with a game running. It will not work. There's like a 50-50 chance. It's like Schrodinger's gamepad.
Linus Tech Tips did a video talking about Windows sleep and why it sucks, and why S3 sleep is really what you want to go for, and that's what we see on some of these handhelds. Are we going to see it on the ROG Ally? I don't know. But yeah, I think that, at the risk of beating a dead horse, because we've gone quite a bit into this topic, I think we've covered a lot of this topic on how we feel. Again, I want to see this succeed. I want to see some community pop up around it, but I don't think it's going to be. I'm really nervous of it not getting the sales and then Asus pulling out, and we don't see other mainstream manufacturers build handhelds like these. So yeah, we'll just see what happens. Speaking of ChimeraOS, hey Gardiner, did you want to tell me more about this ChimeraOS and the update we got?
ChimeraOS, my guy, is incredible. Like I showed, you can just boom and then it's on.
I've never seen. Oh no.
Oh, there we go. Come on. Of course, now I want to show it.
Well, I mean, we have seen it work.
Yeah, but anyway, it's there we go. So if I hit the guide menu, right? This is ChimeraOS. It brings up the Steam menu just like on Steam Deck, right? And I can go over here and I can close the game. I can go back into the game. I can bring up the performance menu, and a lot of the performance options are here. Here, let me turn the volume down a little bit.
I've never tried ChimeraOS myself, so I'm really surprised how quickly it boots up like that, especially an older device such as the Win 2, which has a far more limited chipset compared to what we've got now. And
like, so it's been sleeping with this game running for 3 or 4 days.
Wow.
And it's at 76% battery life. And it also, like, I have a bunch of the performance menu options that you would see on the Steam Deck in there. So it's actually quite awesome, and it's running Steam in Steam Deck mode. This isn't like big picture mode, because you're not going to have a lot of these options in big picture mode, but it's working really, really well. And I was playing, what is this game? This is Geometry Wars 3.
Nice.
So I was playing Geometry Wars 3 on here. I tried playing it on Windows. on this device, and I was getting nothing of the performance that I'm getting on Linux. So a ChimeraOS is fantastic. You can switch to desktop just like you can on Steam Deck. And this is running GNOME instead of KDE. Preferable in my opinion. I much prefer GNOME over KDE. Let's see. But like there's a bunch of cool stuff that happened with the latest ChimeraOS release.
41, I believe.
ChimeraOS 41. Basically there's some interesting stuff that they're doing with the Steam Deck. They now have like audio support because most Linux distros were having trouble with the Steam Deck hardware, so you can get that working on the Steam Deck now. Let's see. There was a couple other things. They switched over to UEFI booting, so you can get more performance, or I don't know what the benefit of UEFI is. Honestly, I don't see it, but
more compatibility, I guess, for modern systems.
Right. But I have this installed on my GPD Win, and I have it installed on another machine in here with a AMD. I think it's a Ryzen 5 3000 series, something or other. And it's just the integrated GPU. It works great. You can't play like super high end stuff, but I also have a PC here that I can stream games to my TV. And it's just super nice. And my guy, have you played Steam Deck? Or have you used the Steam big picture mode interface on a 4K display?
Yes, although not in 4K, I don't think. Yes, it is so much nicer to have that blown up, and it's incredible how far we've come from the original big picture to this now. It's amazing. I love it.
Yes. The original big picture mode is like just compared to like the new big picture mode.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. I mean, part of me is going to miss like that eerie, weird, like big picture mode.
Well, you got the boot animation though. You got that. So, you can live.
That was the best part of it.
It was so interesting.
But I'm a huge fan of ChimeraOS. People in the comments have been saying that they want me to do a video about Chimera, so I probably will do a deep dive on the channel. So
I think it's worth it. I'm not like knowledgeable in a technical sense, but I am at least aware of a lot of different Linux distros. And I knew of ChimeraOS, but I never knew that it could wake from sleep as well as it did, and some of these advantages. I saw the updates where it said it was working on Steam Deck. I thought it was a little weird of why would you want to put this on a Steam Deck, but it's personal choice. That's the thing. It's an open device and you can do that. So why not support the Steam Deck? That's cool. And really the big thing is I sold my Win 3 before I got a chance to try ChimeraOS on it, because I think it would have made a far better experience. As you were saying, I think is a really cool project. I really like that. So that's all awesome. I think a video on it is warranted. I think it's a really cool project that deserves to be highlighted.
Yeah. The one thing too about it is that ChimeraOS is based on Arch Linux. It's been around for years at this point, and it is what I believe Valve took a lot of inspiration from ChimeraOS when doing SteamOS 3.0, because ChimeraOS has an immutable file system, right? It's based on Arch Linux. It's it is using the Steam Compositor from version 2, or it was originally using the Steam Compositor from SteamOS, and it still is, but like it's been customized even further by the development team. So it is quite an interesting project, and Valve took a lot of inspiration from it, and I think that it's helped move the entire gaming ecosystem on Linux forward, and it's super super cool. Plus it only comes with like 4 or 5 like applications for desktop mode. It's like you have like it doesn't even come with a web browser. You have to install that from flat pack, like for yourself. So it's very, very gaming focused and doesn't come with any bloat whatsoever.
I think I've seen less people asking for Valve to release Steam OS 3.0, partially because we're seeing some of these projects just people are discovering it for the first time and saying, "Oh, this is a really great project and it already does a lot that Steam OS is doing. Why not try this?" So,
Yeah.
yeah, check it out if you're looking to build a home theater PC or have a Windows handheld that you just need to tune up with Linux.
Yeah. If you have a Windows handheld, you need to make good.
Speaking of handhelds that are good, here I'm going to read out exactly what I wrote in the doc.
Okay.
While I hold my Vita,
Mm.
because you'll know that I actually do like Sony and their handhelds.
Yeah.
Where am I? Noted PlayStation handheld fan Jackson forgets to add Sony's rumored new stream-only PlayStation handheld to the dock because of how incredibly dead on arrival it is.
Yep. Yep.
I
hasn't even arrived and it's already dead.
I was maybe 5 to 10 minutes out from filming this podcast when I realized, oh, this was announced or this was rumored and people are talking about it. I cannot understand this move at all from Sony when they have had a history of building at least the PSP, which was successful for them.
Yeah.
Again, Nintendo numbers are different, and we've got to keep that in context. I feel like in the last episode or two, yeah, there you go. One of the episodes I mentioned how Sony has turned the Steam. It seems like they're turning the Steam Deck into a pseudo PlayStation Vita 2, PSP 2 of putting out their games on PC, and I can see why it benefits them tremendously because they spent no money on hardware development, no money supporting this device. At most, they are hiring developers to port their games, and Steam is taking a 30% cut on the games that they sell. But I, again, think at some point soon in the near future, we're going to see a PlayStation launcher for PC, and PS5 games are going to release either very quickly or on the same day as their PS5 counterparts on PC through this service where they won't need to pay 30% to Steam at all. They'll have it on their own launcher, which, sigh, another launcher. But, it's hopefully they've seen the value of the Steam Deck and they'll make it work for Steam Deck. And that's how we'll get our PlayStation games, and we won't need to go out and get a PS5 unless you truly want that experience. And we've seen the Logitech G Cloud come and I'm not going to say go, but be discounted quite a bit at this point. I don't think there's been a truly successful streaming only handheld.
There won't be.
So there's a lot of Android handhelds that are for emulation that we see, like the Ein Odin, for example. That's a very popular one. Some of these companies can just say they're emulator devices because they don't have to worry about companies going after them because either they're like based in Shenzhen or just they're small potatoes, small fries. They're not going to get like targeted necessarily. When you're Logitech, you can't just straight up and say, yo, you want to play some GameCube on this handheld? You can't say that. You can build the Android handheld. You can hand it to people that will say it on their own channel. But you don't have to ever advertise that. So you are limited to saying this is a streaming device, or you could play Android games, which are... There's Genshin Impact, if you're into that. Other than that, Diablo Immortal is what I'll say is a game.
Do you guys not have smartphones?
Do you not have phones? So I haven't seen one of these streaming only devices succeed. I know the G Cloud was it was kind of limited in terms of hardware power. So the emulation front, it wasn't great. It was good for the screen and the ergonomics. RAZER, I don't know, did they come out with their streaming handheld? It was a tablet with like Joy-Cons stuck on it.
Yeah.
That apparently had far more power, so it could emulate better. I don't know if it came out or has yet to come out.
Yeah, I know I have a thing that I can't talk about.
Ooh.
But I have an Android-ish device. I can't talk about it. It's kind of cool. But it's Android, so it's not really the same thing, but I can't wait to talk about it on the channel. It's going to be interesting. So
I'm not going to completely shit on these devices because I think they're really cool. Again, I think the Ein is a really cool and a good product. I just also think that the crowd that is going to take that device and emulate and take full advantage of it are not the crowd that are going to walk into a Best Buy and say, hey, what handheld could I play GameCube on? They're not going to say that.
Right.
They're going to walk in, they're going to buy a Switch, or they're going to buy an Xbox or a PS5. Or they're going to look at this Sony streaming only device, say, hey, I love the PSP growing up. I'll get this, and be very disappointed. Or they're going to be really in love with the fact that they can remote stream to their device from the PS5 and play in their house or somewhere else that has a really good connection.
The interesting thing is, I talked about this in my video on Friday, and there were a lot of comments. There were a lot of comments that were like, hey man, I had a PS Vita literally just to do remote play on my PS4 or from my PS4. And it's like, okay.
And that's certainly what Sony tried to sell you on at a certain point, because they were struggling with the Vita and said, okay, we've got to pivot to this is a companion device to the PS4. And so I totally get that. I think it is super cool. I just know that you can do that with so many different devices right now. You
can do it on the Steam Deck.
You can do it on
Steam is great.
And it's a better experience than the Vita. I'm sorry. I loved my Vita. I'm not past tense. I love it. I tried remote play, and either the Wi-Fi radios aren't as good, or there's something about it where the streaming just isn't as high quality as on my Steam Deck, where it's a much cleaner picture. Frame rate is 60, where I was playing Persona 5 Royal and it looked like it was playing at 30 FPS. I don't know why it was like streaming that way.
Does the Vita only have like Wi-Fi N or something? I feel like it's Wi-Fi N.
I mean, it is an older device, so I couldn't tell you. But I think that plays a factor into why it's not as good an experience as something that just came out a year ago. That said, the homebrewing scene is amazing. There's some great gems. Not that you're going to be picking up a Vita for any reasonable price, but again, this device should have done so much better. I'm blaming it entirely on the proprietary memory cards. You put in the micro SD adapter and you hack this thing. Oh, it's a whole new device. You just have all that storage now. It's amazing.
I mean, even on my PSP, like I have a Memory Stick Pro Duo adapter for my thing. So I have an SD card, like a micro SD card in here, which is, it changes the whole paradigm.
Oh yeah.
It's, so proprietary stuff is just ridiculous, and it limits things in such awful ways.
I mean, Sony's argument was this is to make sure that the speeds are fast enough to play games off of, but at the same time, Nintendo had a micro SD card at that point, and those games were playing fine. So it was not a limitation at the time for like technical wise. PSP, I could maybe see that, but not for the Vita, at least. So
the Vita does only have a version N of Wi-Fi, so which is limited. It's extremely limited in its bandwidth.
If it works well for you for the remote play, that's awesome. If you're still using the Vita, more power to you. And you rock. You're awesome. It's a fantastic device that I display on my shelf with all my other. So I'm sad that I can't like show my Sony handheld collection because it's a shelf above, so you get the Nintendo shelf. So it makes it look like
Nice.
I'm a huge Nintendo fan. Uh, I have far more PSP and Vita games up here. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, so let's jump into talking about the Steam Deck. Let's jump into uh outlet. I don't know how I'm gonna say this. OMDIA. OMDA. You try it.
Daya.
I'm so sorry for me butchering the name of it. Predicts that the Steam Deck is going to break 3 million sales in 2023. Not that they have, but they're going to. And I don't know if that's going to be the end of the year, but that's huge.
Yeah, I suspect they're already over 2 million at this point,
You think
especially
so?
with that sale we just had. But we don't have like a new what is it called? The new hardware survey yet. So
Right.
I'm waiting to see how that looks.
And Valve is notably tight-lipped about hardware sales. So they don't tell. The only way we knew that the Steam Deck sold 1 million was because of a picture of a Steam Deck cake to celebrate the 1 million milestone.
Yeah.
I think, or
There was also the KDE developer who
there we go.
Like
That was the
said
one.
it. Yeah.
Right. So we can only speculate until someone internally comes out with this info. And how long did it take for the Steam Deck to get to 1 million sales? That was a year.
Yeah. I think we hit 1 million in November. They were celebrating it in November.
Okay, so it went on sale February, correct?
Yeah.
End of February, and then 1 million by November.
And the whole process was hamstrung by like the pre-order situation and everything like that.
You could only buy it from Valve directly from their store. The pre-order situation, which I found it a better solution than the graphics cards or the consoles at the time.
Yeah.
God, trying to get a graphics card at that time was so frustrating. Anyways,
Yeah.
so it took that time to get there. To get to 3 million in a year, a similar amount of time, is nuts. It speaks to Valve ramping up their production, putting it in more countries, putting it in retail stores in some countries. I think some Asian countries, Japan, maybe.
Yeah. Aren't they? Isn't it like Asus stores?
I'd laugh.
I'm not kidding.
I don't think it's Asus stores, but I would laugh if it is. Because is Asus? Jeez, is Asus? Asus is not a Japanese company. It might be. Oh,
It might be Acer.
yeah. I think Asus is. Where are they based out of? I forgot.
Wait, I'm looking this up now.
Okay. Anyways, I'm gonna keep talking about this. Right. It's huge.
It's Acer.
It's Acer. Okay. It's the fact that Valve has reached this far with the limitations that are in place currently is huge. And at some point, again, I do think it's going to come to retail stores stateside or to the West at some point in the future. Why wouldn't it? Like, clearly this thing sells. Like, it's, again, you can't compare it to Nintendo handheld numbers. It's not the same thing. Nintendo with the DS, that was a whole new market that they created essentially of, hey, you can play Sudoku in this. You can do Brain Age. You can do like reaching out to non-gamers and saying, here's why you want this device. The Steam Deck is not marketed in that same way. It's not marketed to people wanting to play Madden or only pick up Call of Duty every year. It is for people that do love, I mean, I don't want to say like these people don't love games. Like that would be unfair. People that are, how do I say this? That what am I looking for? People that are more that I don't know, have a bigger library on Steam, like just like playing far more games, I would say.
The way I think about it is that Nintendo consoles are for Nintendo games. Like you don't buy a Nintendo to play Stardew Valley. You don't buy a Nintendo to play, Half-Life or other games from third-party publishers. You really don't. And that's not like a slight against Nintendo, I don't think. Maybe it was different with like the 3DS and it's different with the Switch, but like for the most part, you buy Nintendo consoles to play Nintendo games. People like more gaming enthusiasts who appreciate, I can't really say appreciate, but who play a wider variety of games from different publishers, you're more likely to see them on Xbox or PlayStation or PC. That's how I think about it.
I'll certainly say on PC, I think, people that want to have a broader spectrum of games available, they go to PC. I don't know necessarily if I would agree with they'd go to the other consoles to experience those indies. I think the Switch has a very strong indie scene. And yes, I agree. People go to Nintendo consoles for Nintendo games, but I mean, certainly people ragged on the GameCube for not having the third and the N64 for not having a third party support. Nintendo has worked on that, especially for the Switch. I certainly know people that have said, hey, I want to play Stardew Valley. They said, I want to play Stardew Valley with my friends. How do I do that? Nintendo Switch. Because they had a Nintendo Switch and they bought it on Switch. And then they want to play with their friends on Switch. And they got to get a Switch. So they get that Switch. And then they're playing their games on Switch. Because it's a device that you just get the game and it plays on the thing. Yeah. And that's what those people want. People like us will take the, hey, you might need to tweak some settings. Hey, we're not fully sure if this is certified to work, but you can try it. We'll take that if it means that we get more options for our games, a wider selection of games, and ways of playing better prices and ways to play the games that we want. I want the controls that I want. I want to use the controller that I want. I want the performance that I want and even on the Steam Deck. I'm not saying like a custom $5,000 rig. I want to be able to choose, hey, do I want it to look pretty or do I want a smoother frame rate? And I'm happy to see that on modern consoles now of performance mode or I don't know, high fidelity mode. I forget what it's called. Ray trace mode, probably. I'm glad that is becoming a thing. But I still want to be able to tweak more knobs and say, no, I'd rather have this run at 40 FPS instead of 30. It's just the Steam Deck has been far less of a headache than I have found with modern consoles. For me, at least. Yeah. For other people, that's not going to be the case.
Yeah, I think the word you were looking for was tinkerers. Like, we're more tinkerer oriented. Like, the Steam Deck is for people who are interested in futzing with little controls and
certainly, but I would say tinkerers. I do think it also a range broader than tinkerers, but not quite like the mainstream audience that are walking to Best Buy. Because my brother, he loves the Steam Deck, but he doesn't tinker on the same way that I do. So he's not interested in installing EmuDeck on his system. He just wants to download RetroArch or the emulators there, mainly because of cloud saves. That's his biggest thing, is the cloud saves. And he doesn't want to set up sync things. He just wants that to work. And with Steam Deck, you can do that. But he wants also more control over his games.
That's an interesting point too, because, if you have like the Steam Deck appeals to more than just PC gamers, right? It's this middle ground between console gaming and PC gaming that, it's one of the reasons that I love it so much. I mean, we talked about this earlier where it's like, I don't really like PC gaming because it requires you to like set your default, your rendering settings and optimize things and get all this stuff done. And, I do like tinkering with things. I'm an operating system nerd, but I don't want to like have to go in and like micromanage how every game is going to perform. and that's and especially doing that in a handheld form factor where you're limited to what inputs you have, like the Steam Deck is absolutely perfect for me because you can set global performance profiles or you can set a single like per game performance profile. It's so convenient.
Or
and
you
yeah. Or you don't have to do anything.
You never have to touch it. When my brother, because my brother got his Steam Deck before I did, because he immediately jumped on the pre-order. Unlike me, I waited like 2 or 3 days because I had the Win 3 and I wasn't sure if I was going to buy it because of that. And then I was like, no, this is not living up to what I want. When he showed me his Steam Deck for the first time, I immediately launched into the settings, the power settings, testing performance. And then later that day, he texted me. He was like, hey, how do you turn off what you just did? And I put on like the GameScope on-screen display and frame rate stuff. And he's like, how do I turn this off? I don't know how. And I realized, oh, he never opened any of this. He was never interested in. And since then, he might have changed, like tweaked some things, or might have discovered through this, but he's not interested. He is a technical and a computer guy. He works for Microsoft as a data center technician, but he's not interested in spending all of that time troubleshooting or tinkering the same way as I like doing it. I like the nitty gritty. He doesn't. And I love that this handheld suits both of us.
Right. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I did want to say, I wanted to highlight, because I was looking for articles that were like, Steam Deck's going to fail. I actually had a harder time finding that, but I did remember a video of Bob Wolf from Wolf Den, his reaction immediately to the Steam Deck. It's on his Clips channel. You can look at it. It's a 15-minute video where he kind of shits on it, truthfully, and quote, lower your expectations by a lot. I think some things he say were valid in the context of what he was thinking. Like, I can see where his mind was, but he was still like, I don't see why this thing exists. Notably, after he reviews the device, he has a video for reviewing the Steam Deck, obviously. He made 8 other videos that featured the Steam Deck, either as the main subject or just tangentially of, I want to play this on the Steam Deck, or I'm building an arcade cabinet and I put the Steam Deck in it. Like, he is quite clearly fallen in love with this device. He keeps bringing it up. And he is,
to be fair, he when he said lower your expectations by a lot, he was using pre-release hardware, if I remember correctly.
He didn't have hardware on him. He didn't have the Steam Deck at the time.
Oh,
he was immediately reacting to the announcement.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
Go
ahead. Sorry.
His channel was more focused on Nintendo and Nintendo Switch. That's what kind of, I think, got him a lot more subscribers at that point. That was the focus that he was doing. But he covered other video game, like Sony, Xbox. He then also explored emulator devices, a lot of handhelds that I've mentioned, the Own and such. He explores that. He likes that stuff. And then the Steam Deck gets announced and he says, I don't think this is going to work. This doesn't make sense. No one's going to walk into GameStop and buy this thing. This is dumb. You're never going to see this. He doesn't say like it's absolutely going to fail in the video, but he's far more pessimistic. And since then, there's clearly a pivot of, no, I really like this device. In one of his last videos where he went to PAX, he said, I'm going to pick up these indies on my Steam Deck just because they come to Steam sooner. Like 30XX is the one he talks about constantly, and it's not on Switch. So he's like, you know what? I have it for Steam. I'm going to play it on my Steam Deck. So
I have noticed even when he did the review of the Steam Deck, like he was like talking about how half baked the software was, but like now I don't think I've heard him say even like one negative thing about it recently. I follow his channel quite a bit,
right?
But
I'd have to think on that one if he said anything negative lately. He hasn't, but like him, The Verge, when they reviewed the device at launch, said, hey, this thing isn't done, but I like it. They at least said, I Both of them said I like it, but it's not done. And then however long later, we see the same guy who reviewed it on The Verge say, hey, it's ready. This is it. This is right. He says he still stands by everything he wrote in the review, but then in this new article, he says like that it's where it needs to be. This is great. So, did the Steam Deck launch? I'm not gonna say half baked, but needed additional work. I can't say because I had mine in Q3, and between Q1 and Q3, very different devices. Honestly, very different.
I had mine like 3 days before it officially launched.
Right.
And the software was pretty, I don't even know what the word would be. It was not great.
Right.
But I saw the potential. I knew where it was going. And I really, really, really liked it, like, immediately. And then every iteration of the software that came out improved something in a massive way. And
it was like every day we saw a new software update, right?
Yeah, it was like 2 times a week originally, and then it's become, once a month to the stable branch. Yeah.
Right. I mean, clearly at this point, the Steam Deck is a more prime time. Like, I could hand this to my friend who plays on the Switch or his PS5 and say, go to town. And I'm pretty sure he'd be fine with it. I don't think he'd have any issues.
My question is, I'm wondering, I mean, I know that like they were having like sourcing issues, like supply chain issues and whatever, but as much as it was supply chain issues, I bet there was also some like the software's not done yet considerations, because it really, like, it was in a pretty rough state when I first got it. So, I mean, I honestly, like, looking at how it was, like the state it was in when I got it in my hands versus the state, like, cause they were originally going to launch in like November. Right.
Yeah.
And so like in November 21, and I'm like, I got it in my hands. I'm like, this software would not have been anywhere near ready in November.
They would have been eaten alive.
Oh yeah. So as much as it was supply chain issues, I bet there was also some software considerations with that.
Valve made the right moves with this device. I think it paid off. You know what else is ready for prime time? Master Chief Collection is now added support, anti-cheat support for the Steam Deck. So
hell yeah.
Hey, you can play the good multiplayers on your Steam Deck now. I did like Infinite, but
yeah, Infinite is good. I've only played the multiplayer on Infinite, but it's good. But I mean, Halo is one of my favorite franchises.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really cool to see that finally officially supported on Steam Deck.
I'm going to give Infinite a little bit more time to bake. I want to see what they do with Forge and whatnot. In the meantime, I'm probably going to be playing not Half-Life. I mean, maybe, but Halo 3 multiplayer and such, because man, that was, again, another like high school staple.
Yep.
I will say I had a number of issues trying to get this to run on my Steam Deck. Initially, I couldn't get it to run the anti-cheat at all. I had to delete the entire game and re-download it, which sucks when you have all the DLC making it like 140 gigs. And then when I actually got into a match, I forgot how I configured the controls. So I was just grappling between trying to get everything working. So I eventually had to go into a custom game on Zanzibar by myself and just like spend 20 minutes customizing each single control to what I like. So, yeah. But I think, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the thing about this is that right now it's only possible to play against other Steam Deck players.
That is the interesting thing. And I kind of wonder if hopefully this, I didn't fully read their announcement. I don't know. I think this is something they're going to work on. But are we going to see other developers say, hey, we are opening up anti-cheat support for the Steam Deck, but you are cordoned off from the rest of the player base. You are only playing with each other. Do we think at some point that might happen with some people?
Well, honestly, my first impression was that this is going to be a problem because of Proton. Like, Proton might be providing different random numbers or something. Like, when it comes to programs, right, you get like a random number generator, and if everybody has the same seed, then everybody gets the same result in a random number generator, as long as you're running the same versions of like the different libraries that the game depends on. But if Proton is providing a different random number than other clients are getting with the same seed, then that could be part of the issue, right? Like, and it might not just be random numbers, but it could be different results in different ways that don't crash the game for all Steam Deck players, but could lead to desyncing between clients on different operating systems. So that was my first thought. I'm curious to see if this is something that other games do. And honestly, if you're playing a PC game against, on a Steam Deck against people with a mouse and keyboard, I could see that being a disadvantage for you.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think it would be bad to have anti-cheat available for games that are competitive online and have Steam Deck players and then everybody else in different lobbies, if you will.
Right. I will say, despite it only being open to Steam Deck players, and do we know if it works on Linux, or is it only Steam Deck right now?
They didn't mention Linux, but I'm pretty sure that it is available on Linux.
I wouldn't think that there's any reason it wouldn't work, but despite it only being cordoned off to Linux users to play together, I didn't have to wait like 5 minutes to get into a match. It took a minute, and then I got into a multiplayer match pretty easily. So it's not like the player base is nothing. It's clearly people are immediately jumping into the multiplayer on Steam Deck and Linux. Mostly on Steam Deck, because I saw in all of my matches, I think I was the only keyboard and mouse player on my Steam Deck, because my Steam Deck was set to keyboard and mouse, and I couldn't figure that one out. Everyone else had a gamepad, so possibly they were all playing on their Steam Deck. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I mean, they did. I read the whole Halo Waypoint like post about it, and they are talking about like further Steam Deck support down the line. So I am excited about this, and I think it's going to be pretty cool.
I love it. This is one that I was waiting on quite a while, and now I'm so happy that I can play on my Steam Deck. Speaking of Microsoft, oh no. Nintendo did a thing, and I'm mad about it. Microsoft pulls emulator support because Nintendo doesn't want to try. So basically, one, let me quickly say that it was against the terms of service to have emulators on the Microsoft Store. Like, that was a thing beforehand. I guess Microsoft turned a blind eye to it somewhat, because there was a loophole where you could publish private links to your apps in terms of like development stuff. So what these emulator developers did is that they would publish these emulators for the Xbox Series and One with these special links to download, and then you would just add it and you'd have it on your console. But because there has been either some type of legal issue, or what I think, Nintendo threatened to pull any sort of partnership that Microsoft and Nintendo currently have together. They said, get rid of these or we walk out the door. And Microsoft caved. Because neither...
Get rid of these or GoldenEye gets removed from the Rare collection.
Right. It's like both have quite the resources to go to war legally. So that is not something that either of them would want to do. And you can see that with Sony and Microsoft fighting over the Activision acquisition. Like, Microsoft, I'm sure would not want to relive this with Nintendo in some way. So Microsoft did mention in their announcement, well, no, it's not an announcement. I'm sorry. This information comes from a tweet from an Azure developer of an email from an insider at Xbox. This is not an official statement from Xbox. I need to say that. But in the email, it states that Microsoft is not looking to remove emulator support from dev mode, which some people had feared a while back because there was some kind of bug where it was revoking dev mode from users and such. Um, they're not removing that capability, and they are, quote, looking for ways of supporting emulation that support copyright laws and such. Like, they're, I don't know what that means, because in a famous court case against with Sony and essentially an
Bleem.
emulator developer back in the
Yeah.
90s,
Bleem.
Bleem, they made an emulator for PS1 for Mac. They said, "Hey, yo, you want to play your PlayStation games on Mac? Here you go. Buy our software." Sony said, "Wait, that's illegal." And the court said, "No, it's not."
No.
They argued, the court sided with the developers, saying that it's not illegal to emulate this stuff. They didn't take any proprietary code. It's, it's their original work to make this emulator. It's not illegal to emulate. The way you get these games to emulate is where you open up the legality of it. And even to the point of legally dumping your ROMs that you own is a gray area, because it could be argued those are archival, and you're not meant to use archival as like the media you play. It's weird. Like, all of it's a gray area. Morally, completely fine to emulate your games that you buy.
Mm-hmm.
So Microsoft's not removing that. You can do it in dev mode. The only problem is dev mode does not have the same access to resources as retail mode, which is the normal way the Xbox functions, and that's what they are taking away. Retail mode, easier to get into, and has far more power to emulate, so that's why they want it on there. I'm sure the developers are immediately trying to figure out ways around this.
Oh yeah. The thing that I find troubling about all of this, besides the fact that Nintendo has so much contempt for their fans, is the fact that Microsoft has the ability to disable private apps on Xbox.
Not only private apps, but disable them on your Xbox if you had downloaded it previously. There were people that opened the app that could no longer launch it, having it downloaded prior to this. Microsoft went in and said, "No, we don't want you using that." And it's just like, okay, so this is a reminder that you don't really own this device in a sense, because at the end of the day, they're going to change. They're going to put ads on the home screen in a different way. They're going to take away the user interface that you like and put in a different one.
And also, there's probably this infrastructure that they used for Xbox probably exists for Windows. I'm gonna say that. I don't know if it's true, but I'm gonna say it.
Who knows? Who can say? This is all just incredibly frustrating, because we've seen Nintendo just be overzealous about DMCAs and cease and desists. Jumping back to the Fox, as I've mentioned previously, the Fox recently put out a video discussing whether or not this is Nintendo going to war with emulation. I mean, they already have. Going to war with emulation, especially before the launch of Tears of the Kingdom. What I am worried about is that Denuvo, the anti-cheat that we all, not the anti-cheat, the DRM that we all hate on PC, that blatantly doesn't work, categorically fails, does not protect anything, just makes the worst experience for everyone. They discussed adding special DRM to Switch games to fight emulation. They advertised this as something that they could do. And they went as far as to publishing an ebook about the horrors of game emulation. Is this, are we going to see Nintendo and Denuvo team up for DRM, like bullshit DRM, to hobble emulation in some way, which we will eventually defeat? It's, people are passionate. They want to play their games on the handhelds that they want, the devices that they want. It's not just a piracy thing, though. I understand the PSP and the Switch had haven't had piracy problems. I get that. However, there was a study somewhere, I don't remember where. Google this if you want to fact check me. Um, that the people that pirate games are the ones that spend the most on games. I will say, at least from me being play a lot of games emulation or through emulators, I've got a lot of games that I spend a lot of money on.
Yep,
Like
me too.
it, I love games and I want to keep them going. It's a preservation thing for me. I just enjoy these games. I want to experience them the way I want, namely on the Steam Deck. Um, so is this going to change things like Dolphin's Steam release, where it got a lot of press coverage? Is Nintendo going to try something saying, Valve, we want you to get rid of this, or we're going to DMCA, cease and desist? What are they going to do?
They have no grounds to do any of that.
They
And
don't.
if any company's going to stand up to Nintendo bullying, it's going to be Valve.
The one thing I fear is Nintendo tries slap suits. So it's because, unfortunately, the court system, if you just have more money, you'll win at some point. Um, I If Nintendo really wanted to, they could throw so many slap suits against these developers that they would just have to. They'll run out of money, essentially, which is really shitty. And we've seen that happen with some, not emulation developers, but we've seen that as a tactic for, I forget where, but it's a tactic, and it's a really shitty one. So because these fans, as we've saw last week, the death of the eShop for the Wii U and the 3DS, well, fans are already working on uh, uh, restoring network functionality to these consoles through the Pretendo network. It's bringing back functionality to the Wii U 3DS, such as restoring Mario Maker levels, sharing them and downloading them and such. Splatoon multiplayer, including Splatfests. I saw Pretendo have their own custom Splatfest. The Pretendo logo was on there and such. And where was I? And even the Miiverse, restoring Miiverse functionality to the Wii U, so you could have like that menu where you have all the Miis and you start seeing the Miiverse pop up. Like, they're working to restore all of that functionality because it's these people just love Nintendo, and they love the consoles that they enjoyed so much. So I love the fact that they're working to preserve this. There's even people working to restore PlayStation Home, the kind of weird Second Life, social metaverse before metaverse. It was neat. I certainly liked the E3 stuff that they did inside of Home. I didn't do it a ton, but they're working to restore Home for the PS3. I think you could do it on the PS3 or through emulation, possibly. The lead developer, where was I? The lead content developer mentioned they're working on a Linux version and how cool it would be to play Home on the go with Steam Deck. Oh. So it's, I don't know if I'll do that, but that's really cool to see. Like, I love the fact that this is what people are doing because they're so passionate. But you have people that are passionate. They go on YouTube, they upload tons of Breath of the Wild videos, and Nintendo will DMCA, like what they did with Point Crow. They DMCA'd four of his Breath of the Wild videos recently. Yeah. For some reason. Like, they're still up, but they're not monetized. It makes no sense. It's just another example of Nintendo being hyper aggressive against fans that are basically doing free advertisement for their games because it's some kind of misguided view of either they think they're entitled to all of the money or they think it's akin to piracy in some way. And I searched some articles just to find like Nintendo acting out. I just searched Nintendo shuts down fan. It's all I searched. Here are some of the headlines that I got. Eurogamer 2013, Nintendo now claiming ad revenue for YouTube Let's Play videos. That was before their partner program and such. That was the big thing that spurred this, which eventually got shut down and we all hated it or something.
I remember that.
Oh, yeah. CBR.com. 2021, Nintendo's 10 most infamous shutdowns of fan games. That included No Mario Sky, the Pokemon MMO, another Metroid project. Let's not forget that.
M2R.
M2R. Pokemon Uranium, all of these things. And here we go. Here's a whole list of Kotaku articles. Kotaku 2019. Nintendo's lawyers need to chill. 2020. Nintendo shuts down Smash tournament over some absurd bullshit. 2021. Nintendo back on its bullshit. Shuts down another Smash Bros. Tournament. 2022. Nintendo's latest DMCA takedowns are over, and this is the title, literally. Checks notes, fan-created Steam icons. This is the Steam Grid DB DMCA we saw earlier because Nintendo's fucking petty.
Yes. Nintendo's latest DMCA takedowns are checks notes, some icons for Steam.
And reading through some of these articles, doing some research, I saw some articles say, Nintendo's been typically pretty good about letting fan art and music and stuff be there and fine. Well, here you go. Nintendo has changed their mind in 2022. Nintendo DMCA'd what was it? The whole Mario soundtrack for a Mario game. I forgot what. Or was it the Zelda soundtrack? It was like they removed off YouTube a whole collection of music that you could not easily get in any sense from YouTube. That was just fans, and I don't know if it had ads or anything, but I'm sure it wasn't monetized on their end. But yeah, Nintendo is just constantly at war with what feels like their own fans, and it makes me very conflicted as someone who's playing through Breath of the Wild, who's going on YouTube and watching these like speed run and glitches and all these cool things that people are still to this day discovering in Breath of the Wild, and highly excited for Tears of the Kingdom. I'm super pumped for that game, but Nintendo's is this shit, and it makes me not want to buy their games because I don't want to reward that in any sense. It's really shitty the way they treat their customers, how they've killed a whole bunch of downloadable only games on their eShop for closing it and said, fuck it, we're not giving you any other way of playing this or getting this. It's just so aggravating, and I don't know what necessarily to do. Either just stop playing these games or buy them and know that I'm like giving Nintendo more and more to their infinite wealth to then eventually keep being fucking pricks and sending lawyers after fans.
The thing is, Nintendo is happy to play fast and loose with copyright law when it benefits them. For example, Mother 3, the music in Earthbound, the samples in a lot of the games that they have, like the homages to the music in other in their games, and then they do the self-incriminating thing. The thing that criminals do when they're trying to avoid looking criminal, and it's go after other people who are doing the same kind of crime. It's it's so annoying.
I will say that's one of the reasons why people think Mother 3 has not come to the West is because of the musical inspirations that are very close to what they're inspired by and can probably get them into some legal trouble. And not only that, but let's talk about how Nintendo going after emulators so hard when they in fact do emulate on the Switch, their online service, all emulation, the 3D Mario collection, emulation. It's they've been emulating their consoles ever since the Wii, I believe. I think that was the earliest. No, GameCube. GameCube was the earliest because they had the bonus disc for The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker that had Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, where they made a specific build for the GameCube.
Yeah, you're right. But there was also Animal Crossing on
That's
N64 when it came, like before it came to the West, it was on N64.
That's right.
And they had NES games on there too.
The full games.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure like the Game Boy Color builds of like Mario and stuff were specifically for that. But still, I mean, Nintendo has like re-released their catalog many times, and in most instances it's been emulation, and it's like, you know, it's fine for them to do it because they own the IP that should have entered the public domain already.
Thanks, Disney.
But that's the other argument. But still, it's like, it's so frustrating when you watch this company with like $2 trillion in equity or whatever, and they're like, you know, screw you, fans. And you know, you're going to do free marketing for us? Go to hell.
And those fans build these emulators that are fantastic. We saw Sony for their PlayStation Classic just straight up. I think it was what emulator was it? It was the PSX rearmed or something.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
PCSX reloaded or rearmed.
Right.
Like that.
They just straight up took that and put it in the PlayStation Classic. They just didn't even bother developing their own emulator. There was a developer on the eShop that ported GBA games, I think the Metabot GBA games, to Nintendo's eShop, but notably used the MGBA emulator just fully and removed credit from the developers, like took that out and sold it. And the funny thing is, it's not even against the terms of service to sell the emulator in a commercial capacity. It's just, you have to credit them. You have to do the bare minimum of just stick one thing in the credit saying, thanks, fans, for building this emulator. But no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to admit, hey, we haven't built emulators that are on par with what the community has made, because they've done this for years. They've done this so long. The only company that I can say has emulators that are as good as the community is Microsoft, because when they built the original Xbox and they were making the Xbox 360, they already were working on software emulation. They were, from the start of the 360, planning, all right, let's build some software emulators, and they've built on top of that since.
Microsoft beat the community to emulation of the original Xbox.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it wasn't until very recently that original Xbox had like open source emulation that didn't suck.
Right.
But you know, Microsoft also didn't release that emulator to the public. It was only available on Xbox.
Yeah, they really should have just open sourced that when they said we're not doing any more backwards compatibility stuff. They really should have done that. It's so aggravating. I can't.
One of the things that makes me incredibly angry at Nintendo is with the SNES Classic. They wouldn't have been able to use Star Fox 2 as a marketing gimmick to sell the SNES Classic if it wasn't for the fact that the Star Fox 2 ROM had leaked online.
Right.
They wouldn't have been able to do that. Like, maybe they would have been like, oh, surprise, you guys didn't know we had a Star Fox 2 ROM. But like the fact that like so many outlets like went and said, oh, SNES Classic has this leaked prototype that's actually legitimately available now, that they benefit from emulation in so many ways. That's just one small example of how Nintendo refuses to recognize how they benefit from emulation and game preservation.
Right.
And something needs to change with Nintendo or intellectual property law in general. But
I mean, the latter
should
happen anyways, but
yeah.
A lot of that hype that we see around these niche franchises from Nintendo or older games, let's be honest, a good portion of that crowd grew up emulating those games because they weren't easily accessible, either for them just being able to go out and get the hardware and plug it into the TV and find a copy of the game or whatever, or it wasn't available in their region. There's a YouTuber, Izzy Norb. He talks about how he grew up in Brazil and he emulated all these games because they just weren't there. He could not access these games in his country growing up. And I grew up with my friend's copy of Super Mario Brothers 3 for the NES, and that was huge for me as a kid. That was hugely important and impactful for me as a gamer, along with Contra and such. Those games, I found more games through this back catalog that Nintendo did not offer up until the Wii, where the Wii offered a good selection that you could buy easily. And that's, again, you want to beat pirates, you just offer a service that's more convenient and better than what they're offering. And we kind of saw that with the Wii Shop in a way. It's just, I like this holy crusade Nintendo has against emulation is confounding because they're turning into the Disney of video games because they're doing the weird Disney vault of this is out for a limited time. Hey, we're killing this off and not giving you any way to access these, because probably later down the line there's going to be a bunch of 3DS games that they're going to be like, oh, one more thing, here's Box Boy collection for Switch. That's going to be $40, please. Like, that's what they're going to do. Or they're going to tie it to their Nintendo Online service where you cannot buy these games individually and just own. Unlike Sony's subscription service, you have to perpetually subscribe to the service to just be able to access history.
Yeah. Nintendo just sucks. And I love their games, but Nintendo hates fun. I've said this a bunch of times, and it really is like, Nintendo not only sells you the games that they want you to buy, but they sell you the box that you have to play it in. And I'm not just talking about the hardware. I'm talking about these are the boundaries of how you're allowed to enjoy this game, and you're not allowed to do anything besides that. Like posting a video of breaking things in Breath of the Wild will get you DMCA'd by Nintendo. Right. And it's
speed runs.
Speed runs. This is the tragedy. It's like they literally hate fun. And because of that, like, I won't support them anymore. Like, I can't do it. I'm sorry. I love Mario. I love Zelda. I love Metroid, Smash Bros. I have so many fond memories of all these games. I just won't do it. I'm sorry. I cannot give them my money anymore. And it's the same way with a lot of AAA publishers, but Nintendo is like the worst about it. Like, I know
it feels like a stab in the back.
Oh, it does. Yeah. I mean, at least with like, EA and Ubisoft, that they're cynical and awful companies that make awful games most of the time. Let's be honest. But but Nintendo makes really good games, and then they are just shit bags.
I can't say that I won't buy Tears of the Kingdom. I'll at least get it used.
Yes.
Will I get it on release day? I can't say I won't. Like, I am so hyped for that game. It looks amazing.
If I can't play it on my Steam Deck, then I'm not going to get it.
Right.
Like, but if dude, here's the thing. If I could get Tears of the Kingdom and play it on my Steam Deck day one, I absolutely would. You know what I'm saying? I would. Sorry, go ahead.
It's going to be very interesting to see how emulation does because I think there was an update to Yuzu where Breath of the Wild performance drastically increased. So I am very curious to see how that's going to work. And I'm very curious to see just how Tears of the Kingdom is going to perform on the Switch just in general. But, we've been pretty negative about certain things, especially Nintendo. I just want to take a second and say, hey, Nintendo fans that create content that they love and play and revive these games, you're awesome. You're the real MVPs. Yes. And hey, I'm sorry that Nintendo are dickbags to you guys because uh, you are the ones keeping the games alive through
Mm-hmm.
the speedrun community, through the tournament community.
Oh yeah.
It just, really, you guys are awesome. Nintendo needs to get with the program.
Yeah. And let's update IP laws too while we're at
it. So I think we've pretty much covered all our bases at this point.
Yeah.
Gardiner, where can they find you?
You can find me right here on YouTube if you're watching. You can find me on ViewSync if you're listening, or whatever. And I'm also, you can go to subscribe2.me and find all of my other social media and internet presences.
Ooh.
How about you, Jackson?
Yeah, I write articles on ViewSync, so you can catch me on there writing articles about how I'm mad about Nintendo or something. The only other place you can currently find me is on Mastodon at JAXSEVEN Jack7 at tech.lgbt. It's a mouthful.
Wow, make it more complicated, jeez.
Right? I should just I should get my Twitter back and just have that handle.
Oh, Twitter. What a trash heap. Anyway.
Anyways.
Jackson, thank you for being here with me today.
Of course.
And sharing your thoughts and opinions and insightful comments on all the things we talked about.
Yeah. I had fun. And hey, see you guys next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.